Yo! Video games.
What's up, dudes? Matt here from YoVideogames, and today I wanted to try something new with everyone. Now, you've probably recently seen I just released my 4 new videos of Matt Rants for E3 2014. This was in response to a lot of people really asking me to bring Matt Rants back, so I did. Now, one thing I wanted to try to say was that, look, Matt Rants are fun, but they're not supposed to be taken seriously. I know that's hard to imagine with a lot of people who just kind of mindlessly watch anything on YouTube, but they're not serious. They're never meant to be taken seriously. There's, of course, a lot of element of truth in them, but they are never meant to be taken as a whole. They're about 60 to 80% how I really feel about any given subject. And that's been true of the first Matt Rants, that's true of these Matt Rants. I was a little hesitant to put up the Nintendo one considering some of the health problems facing their president right now, but I figured people would be upset if I didn't show Nintendo, so hey, I'm going to show Nintendo anyways. And I just wanted to talk to you guys about how I really truly felt about the Matt Rant subjects. And I think there's a common thread through all of them, and that is games are taking way too long to come out. Now, there's a variety of reasons and factors for that, and as much as those reasons may have validity, it still doesn't excuse the fact that almost every major title that I really want to see is not coming out this year. And I think this comes from poor planning on everyone's part. I think Capcom's a great example of this because they literally had nothing to show or talk about at the entire show floor for any next-gen system. They have Deep Down coming out in Japan, but that's a Japanese-only release at this point, and they apparently have nothing else in the pipeline coming. The same is kind of true of Konami and Namco, where it's like we keep hearing rumors about things they want to do and games they have in development, but they weren't talking about it at E3, which means they're obviously not coming this year. And then, of course, we get to Square Enix, who's I honestly, truly do not understand why people put up with that company as much as they do. There's a level of dedication and love to Final Fantasy and Kingdom Hearts that I just don't understand. I used to love both of those series a long time ago. I used to love them. But I fell out of love with them very quickly, and Square's kind of done nothing to get me back because, honestly, like the amount of time they spend making these Final Fantasy games, and then we get 3 Final Fantasy 13s, it's like I can't be a fan. It's hard for me to really gravitate towards those games anymore. But moving on to the first parties, Sony, Microsoft, Nintendo all have a weird thing this year, and that was they had cool games. They had cool games coming out this year, but all of the big titles I really want from them are not coming out in 2014. Microsoft was kind of probably the weakest of the 3 for me in that regard because as much as I really like Ori and the Blind Forest, it is coming in PC. It is apparently coming on 360 as well. It's not pushing me to buy the system, and really nothing else is. I mean, there are games that look good on the system. Like Sunset Overdrive looks good, and I think Season 2 will probably be pretty good when it's all said and done, but I'm not dropping $400 for that, and there's nothing major coming out. When I was in line for Fable Legends and one of the Lionhead Studios employees was trying to explain the game to me, I was right next in line to play the game. Right as I'm waiting to play it, he basically tells me the game is like a MOBA game that's over the shoulder. As he says this, I look over at an empty Alien Isolation kiosk and I just leave the line. I'm first. I'm going next. But I don't care. When I hear that Fable has turned into a MOBA, I don't care anymore. Nothing against MOBAs, not my thing. Not interested. Sony is an odd duck because everyone loves Sony, and Sony kind of did everything right from a PR and hardware standpoint, but they've still not given me any reason to buy the system. I don't like Killzone, I don't like Infamous, nobody likes Knack, and as far as exclusives go, there's nothing else there for me on the PS4 right now. Max has talked about how he's going to get it for Exard, but apparently, according to Axis, Exard is going to play exactly the same on PS3 and PS4. Only difference is resolution, and you can cross-play between PS3 and PS4 users. So there's absolutely no reason in my mind to buy Guilty Gear Exard on PS4 and buy a PS4 for that because I am just not that heavy into resolution. It's nice, but when the game is the same, there's no point. Especially when it's on a cheaper console that I already own. And Nintendo's, of course, a big one, because I'm kind of the Nintendo fanboy, and Nintendo's really just bummed me out, because Nintendo is going into its 2nd year now, and I still don't have the game that I wanted most for it before the system came out. And that's Bayonetta 2, which is coming in October, literally like 2 years after its announcement. And I never expected the game would take that long. Of course, delayed games are great games. A bad game is bad forever, whatever. But the thing is I basically, kind of just been waiting between long periods to buy a Wii U game that I like. Now, there's been lots of good Wii U games, but to be quite honest, Nintendo's, I feel like, hurting themselves with these months-long game delays because they don't have third-party support. All third-party support is gone. The last two, which was Ubisoft and Warner Brothers, has pretty much all but dried up. Even Activision's dried up to an extent. We may not be getting the newest Call of Duty, and we're not getting Legend of Korra by Platinum Games, which is a little surprising, but whatever. This is the bed Nintendo made. They made a system that is irrelevant to third parties, which means they have to supply every single game release themselves. Unless you're an indie title on the eShop, you're really not going to see anything on that system in the 4-month span between Mario Kart 8 and Hyrule Warriors. And I think this is a huge problem, because if you want to buy a Wii U, then you basically have to willingly say, I'm going to have a gaming rig PC, or I'm going to have to buy another console, because there are just so many third-party games that are good that are going to come out on everything but Nintendo. And that's a really hard position for Nintendo to be in. And I know everyone wants to say how great Nintendo did at E3 this year, and they did a fantastic job. No one's going to deny that. You can't deny that. Their Treehouse presentation, their digital event, everything beat the shit out of Sony and Microsoft's E3 presence. But when you were at the show floor, which was a completely different thing, you saw how Nintendo's booth was very focused on a few games, whereas Sony would have literally like 75 games in their booth. And you walked over to Nintendo and there were basically 4 games on display. There was like Smash Bros., Splatoon, Hyrule Warriors, and then Bayonetta. Now there were some other games in the back corner, like Miyamoto's projects and Captain Toad and Mario Kart 10, and they're all good games. I'm not going to say they're bad games because they're not bad games. But they're not games that are going to win new audiences over. And I think it's telling how we're this far into the Wii U's life cycle and we're still talking about tech demos from Miyamoto. Project Guard and Project Robot, cool games. I'm sure they'll be fun, but there's no even guarantee they're ever going to turn into real games. They're still tech demos. Just think of it this way. Nintendo's brightest are still tinkering with the gamepad. I don't know. I know people like to say the gamepad is a major fault with the Wii U, and I think this just adds more fuel to the fire. That we're 2 years into the system's life cycle, and we're still tinkering with tech demos at the show floor because we still can't find great uses for this expensive-ass controller. I enjoy the gamepad. I love playing games in bed instead of, having to be glued to a TV and all that, but there's things about Nintendo that I feel like you're really hurting yourselves. By not having any third-party support, by making owners of the system go for months and months and months on end before releasing a title, it's frustrating because I want to love Nintendo, but it's hard for me to love Nintendo at the same time. There are more titles scheduled for 2015 on the Wii U right now than there are 2014 titles coming out for it. And that's just insane to think about. Usually you know less about the titles that are coming a year away, not more than the titles you have coming out now. It's just ridiculous. I can't believe Nintendo is actually letting this happen, but it is, and that's just kind of the things you got to deal with. So anyways, this is my first real talk with Matt. I hope you guys liked it. I hope you guys are looking forward to more content like this coming to the channel. I hope to provide more of it. So I'll hope to catch you later, dudes.